after a relationship ends between a couple, two people break up, the responsibility for the breakup lies squarely with the one who chose to split up, who chose to leave the relationship. Now, you might think that's unfair. You may think that's an unfair viewpoint, but I'm not trying to assign blame to someone for leaving a relationship, especially if it's necessary, because sometimes it is. Like if you're in a domestic abuse situation. Say if you're a woman who is being domestically abused by the male partner. Actually, let's not say that, because that's identity politics. It could be that a male is getting domestically abused by a female partner. So let's remove that aspect and say partner 1 and partner 2. Partner 1 is getting domestically abused, and it's physical, it's violent, so it's real. If it's speech, if it hurts your feelings, if it's something they said, or if it's some kind of expectation of control that you have over your partner and their behaviour, like you expect them to do things, then that's not domestic abuse, that's not harassment, that's not a reason to leave a relationship, I think. Of course, it's your choice to leave the relationship, but I think domestic abuse should be based on violence. So if someone's being physically violent to you and they're the instigator, they're the initiator, they hit first, then you are well within your rights and should be allowed to, not allowed, because it should be fine for you to choose to leave the relationship. And you can defend yourself physically, and that wouldn't count as you instigating violence against someone, because you're defending yourself. You're not the initial perpetrator or instigator of the violence. You don't initialize it. It's not preemptive from you. You're just reacting to sudden violence done against you. Yeah, you can defend yourself and it's fine for you to leave the relationship, but we shouldn't overlook that the person who chooses to leave that relationship is the one responsible for the relationship ending. Now, that's not to put blame on that person. If you're in a domestic abuse situation, you should be able to leave the relationship, and that's important that you do, but that is you choosing to leave the relationship. And I use that extreme example of domestic abuse because that's what people would jump to when they hear me make the first argument, that someone should be responsible for a breakup if they do the breaking up. Like if they dump you by text, or dump you by phone, or dump you in person, or split up, or say, I just don't want to be in the relationship anymore, or I'm leaving, or if they just leave without saying anything and it's over. That's the choice of the person who did it. Trying to recover my steps. This is the second time I've recorded this now, but I think it's important. So I like to think of the 20th century style relationship as like a dinner table or a debating table. The table is like a small round table and there are two chairs beside it, and when the relationship starts, the table is set up and there's one person in one chair facing one person in the other chair, and that's the relationship. And you could talk at this table and work things out. And I think that the person who leaves the relationship, as I say, like dumping someone or leaving them, saying you want to split up and leaving, the responsibility lies with them. And what that is person 2 gets out of their chair and walks away from the dinner table, and person 1 is still at the dinner table. You have some instances where a couple will both agree to end the relationship, like they'll have a conversation, they'll talk it through, and they'll say, oh, we'll decide what's best. We both agree to this, we both consent to this, yes. And in that instance, it's like two people getting off their chairs and leaving the dinner table, and I suppose the dinner table gets knocked over at that point, the relationship is properly ended. But in most occasions of breakups, it's only one person leaving the dinner table. So one person gets up out of their chair and leaves. The other person is still in their chair at the dinner table. Like, that relationship didn't get knocked over, it still exists kind of running in the background, because person 2 may have decided to split up with person 1 and leave the table, but person 1 did not choose to leave that relationship. They didn't choose to leave the table, so for all intents and purposes they're still at that table. And that's kind of what what you're left with, the kind of getting over a relationship process when someone else leaves. You're stuck at that table for quite a long time, essentially still in the relationship because you never choose to leave it, so you're in it, you're running it, and it's not just like 2 people holding hands or something is the relationship. It's the table. Like, the relationship is the thing that you have built, that you try and maintain, that you agree to come to, and you agree to leave, and if you don't agree to leave it, someone's still there. Like, someone's still a part of it because they didn't choose to split up, so they're still at that table. And we can argue about what the metaphor of the table is, but it is the kind of loving relationship, and it's the attachment to it, and it's the duty to keep all the things running that are to do with it. And relationships are also sort of capitalistic in a way, because they're sort of like a trade between 2 people. Everything you do is a trade. Like, I'll iron your shirts if you wash the dishes. I'll look after the kids on a Tuesday if you look after the kids on a Friday. You go out and see a friend or whatever. I'll drive the car to take you somewhere this day if you drive your car and take me somewhere this other day. I'll pay both our food bills at the restaurant, go out one night, and then next week go out a night, the other person pays both their food bills at the restaurant for that meal. And I agree with like separate bank accounts. Like, I don't agree with that marriage thing of sharing a bank account. I think that each person must have their own wealth, and you consent to things. You consent to trade actions to keep your relationship going, and you might have like 18 little things of these going at one time, like these little trades between you and your husband or wife or boyfriend or girlfriend. You'll be doing this back and forth thing, like, I'm doing things for you, you're doing things for me, and that can pass over into things like affection and sex and looking after the kids and work and travel and buying stuff and all sorts of things like that. And that's what a relationship should be. I think it should be like everything about it should be consensual. There shouldn't be an expectation of control over your partner. Like, it goes into like authoritarianism in microcosm, when you think that your partner should be a slave to you. And like in a boxing match, how that violence is kind of okay and the boxers don't get carted away like in Rocky or something, because they both chose to have, that's like consensual violence. They chose to have that. You can also, in a weird way, consent to slavery. Like, it's your freedom of choice. As much as I don't agree with it, it's your freedom of choice to choose to be a slave to someone or a slave to a system. You can be a slave to your partner in the bedroom. Like, you could say, I choose to be the submissive in the bedroom, you can be the dominant, and then when we're outside the bedroom, I can be the dominant and you can be the submissive, sort of thing. Lots of relationships are founded in that way, and people run them in that way. But there's lots of kind of like, taxation and paying TV licenses and paying welfare. These are all like consensual slavery to the government. Like, or it should be like that. Then there'd be a subscription service to a big corporation to fill in the potholes of the roads, or to pay hospitals service like money out of the kindness of your own heart. But when that's taken from you non-consensually, like, that's like theft. Like, taxation is theft. The BBC license fee is theft because it's taken from people without their consent. And yeah, in a relationship you can consent to being enslaved if you like it that way. It's your choice. I don't agree with it. Like, I don't agree with like the freedom to enslave yourself. I mean, I think it's fine. I think it should happen. I agree with it as far as I think people should be allowed to choose their own slavery. I just think it's dumb. and in a relationship you have things like that. But when it's non-consensual slavery, that happens quite a lot in relationships, and that's the reason a lot of people break up. Yeah, you shouldn't enslave your partner. You should, unless it's consensual and they want it and you both agreed, like, to be some variety of slave in the relationship. Most of the times you haven't agreed to be that, and someone has an expectation of an ability to control you, or an expectation of your behavior. Like, they think you should be doing something. That's control and slavery if the other person doesn't agree to it. And the same goes for, like, limiting their speech or trying to censor them or telling them, like, in the confines of our relationship, I don't want you saying certain words, I don't want you saying certain things to me or to the children, or, like, just in your life in general, trying to live your life. If I hear you talking about certain things or saying things, then I'm gonna try and shut you down. I mean, they can use their speech against that, but like the coercion of a breakup, like breaking up with someone for speech, or breaking up with someone because they're not letting you control them, control their behavior, that's a bullshit reason to break up. And yeah, in a lot of places online I've, like, referred to myself as a 20th century love advocate, and when you just blurt that out without explaining what it is, people are like, what are you talking about? What's that? That doesn't make any sense. What are you talking about, love advocate? Oh, is that something dodgy? Like, it's like, no, it's like relationships from Victorian times or the 1950s or 1990s, you can see they used to be a lot better than how they are now. There's a lot more breakups now than there were back then. I know there was a lot of breakups going on in, like, the 1990s and the 1950s and things, and we're just not exposed to a lot of it. But I think we should focus on the good parts of relationships. Old style coupling between two people, whether it's marriage or whether you don't get married. I think there are things that keep people together until their old age, like two people, monogamous, usually a man and woman, but you know, if you manage to do it gay, then that's fine as well, if you can keep it going that long. Either way, it's just trying to keep love going for a long time until your old age, or just having a relationship that lasts for 20 years or something, maybe more, is a goal that I think we should all be aiming for, and I think it did happen a lot more in the 20th century. And so I'm an advocate for seeing the things that make those relationships work and trying to replicate them for ourselves, trying to aim for them, trying to head towards them. And that's what this video is about, that I've had to record a second time because this camera has decided it just wants to turn off every now and then by itself while I'm out today. You had one job, camera. Infuriating. Anyway, hope you enjoyed my little philosophical ramble. I'm gonna head up the top of that hill now. On the plus side, it's warmed up. Catch you later, folks.